devoid.
Deeper Divide!
Devoid. Depot. Devoid.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, and donkagins and aborigines, welcome back to Depot Devoid. With me here, as always, is my brother Ted, and with me here is me, myself, Matt. So, Ted, today we are going to be discussing the sort of unusual, slightly off-kilter, very nostalgic 1986 more or less Australian movie that probably most people in the United States saw under the title The Quest, because they probably all saw it a long time ago, if they saw it at all, because I doubt it's making a ton of new fans today.
When I bought Frog Dreaming several years ago, Vincent ended up writing a short paper in school that asked him about things that he was looking forward to doing, and one of them was never watching Frog Dreaming ever again. I don't think he liked it.
That's a fair position to take, I suppose. Not one that really surprises me.
I like it because I grew up with it, and I don't know if Frog Dreaming's actually any different than The Quest.
I don't think it is. It's for those who don't know, this movie was really released under seemingly different titles in every market that it was released in. Like The Secret of the Dark Lake is one of them. Go Kids is another one of the titles.
Right.
The actual script title and production title is Frog Dreaming. The Quest is an appropriate title. It's sort of vague.
Very.
It definitely involves a quest. So fine. That it's. I watched it. Okay. Well, first of all, what do you remember of this movie from childhood? Like, what is your impression of it? Like, going as far back as you can.
Oh, I remembered most of it. Mostly. I remembered what the monster actually turned out to be,
Yeah.
and all of the everything involving with that. But it's always one of those movies that when I do revisit it, I'm happy that I did, and I don't like it that much.
Okay. That's totally fair. It's a movie that for me it works best when my engagement level is low. Which I honestly don't mean as an insult to the movie. I love the vibe of this movie. It is an excellent ambiance in which to steep while I'm sort of doing something else. The mood is lovely. I adore Henry Thomas in this movie. He's terrific. Kids on bikes is one of my favorite genres of anything, and this is a great example of a kids on bikes movie. It is a movie that would never happen now. It's like because it is a movie in which essentially nothing happens.
Yeah, and also you wouldn't be able to have Henry Thomas keep saying, "Oh, the blacks."
Admittedly, there are some unfortunate linguistic choices.
It could have been worse.
It could have been way worse. And honestly, it really is just, there is nothing mean-spirited about it. There are a number of places where they're discussing they're discussing Aboriginal mythology, and they are using terms that would have been totally normal in 1986, which now are like, oh yeah, really? And it's a little cringy.
Just a tad.
um but I really like, I had not watched this movie in a very long time, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will probably not watch it again for a very long time. But it's it's quite pleasant. um it is also, for those who don't know, this is the story of, okay, you remember E.T., everybody remembers E.T. After E.T. ended, the government assassinated Elliot's mom and older brother and baby sister, and Peter Coyote smuggled him out of the country, disguised as his own son. They made it as far as Sydney. When the CIA caught up to them, he was able to pass Elliot off to an old friend of his from back in his own CIA days named Gaza, who essentially adopted him. And they've been living in rural Australia for the last 4 years.
And no matter
Um,
how hard he tries, he can't get that damn kid to stop trying to fly his bicycle.
it's understandable. That was a wonderful moment in his life, and he has been trying to recreate it ever since. He watched ET build that amazing like interstellar communication device out of common household equipment, and he was understandably inspired to see what we can accomplish even with mid 1980s technology. And so he's been experimenting, and he's built himself a number of contraptions, including what we see in the very first scene that he's in,
A bicycle
a
without
railroad
brakes.
bike. Yes, a brakeless railroad bike that rides along the rails using an assortment of roller skate wheels, super safe, um, and trying to launch himself back into space. It's they couldn't get Spielberg back. It's not as good. Obviously, it doesn't have quite the charm of the original.
I don't know. I thought it was pretty good. At least as good as ET. At least it didn't have a little girl doing heroin off scene all the time.
I'll be honest. I'm pretty sure that the reason this movie came into our house in the first place was through me, because I was like, E.T. was probably the first movie that I essentially demanded that I be taken to see a second time. Like, I was that E.T. came out when I was, I think, 8, maybe 7. And I was like pretty thoroughly obsessed with ET in that moment. And so this came out, I was probably 13 when this came out on VHS, and I definitely would have been interested in seeing what the kid from ET was doing. Um, it is not as good as, say, Cloak and Dagger.
Which is a wonderful, wonderful film.
Yeah, but this is a charming, odd little movie. Which I think it deserves at least some mild recognition. it's it's understandably not as beloved as ET was.
Well, I mean, it's unfair, really, for this movie to have come out when it did from where it was, because it ain't no Crocodile Dundee.
It's it's sort of it's weirdly Australian, but like the lead is American, and kind of like that's fine. It's like as Australian as it needs to be, I guess, for the mythology to work. But there, like, that kind of implicit foreignness of it definitely works in its favor, and like even just the style of the movie is, besides being a little bit dated in its pacing, it's not just that. It's like it's clearly not an American movie. It's just like there are different choices being made at every level that makes it just a little bit different, and I think really works in the movie's favor. If for some reason you were a child who was willing to give that a chance.
yeah, and it's fun. I like it. They made some cinematic choices which were seriously trying, but like opening scene of here comes the camera up out of the water. It's not that interesting. It's poorly done, but they do a good job of showing that it's spooky. They do
There's a yeah, there's a lot of stuff that feels like they are trying, like that camera move, that sort of thing. It feels like they are trying to just make it all feel bigger than it really is, because I'm sure this is essentially a TV budget.
yeah, and the quarry is not that big.
Yeah, no. No.
It's
The whole
pretty
movie really takes
weak.
place in like two locations.
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of fun. Their little adventure of going down there and checking stuff out, and then finding the dead guy and everybody freaking out and trying to assess what went on. And he had not been dead that long for Elliot to have known him.
There are a lot of okay. There are a few things about this movie that don't quite add up. We definitely are not. We're given like no real indication of like how long passes between that first scene where we see him be frightened and the scene where we find him. It seems like maybe it's been 40 years based on what we see in the tent. But yeah, it's his relationship with Elliot is confusing. He tells the girl, okay, well, maybe we should catch up a little bit in terms of what's actually happening in this movie. So we're introduced to this kid who's pretending his witness protection name is Cody, but obviously it's Elliot. He is in rural Australia. He's kind of doing his thing. He's an orphan boy from America, hanging out with the local kids. He has a reputation as a bit of a troublemaker, kind of a curious, imaginative type.
The
We were
worst.
first introduced to him with his ridiculous, super dangerous railroad bike contraption that he built.
Without
The next
brakes.
day, with no brakes. The next day, he and a couple of the local girls, Wendy and her little sister Jane, go out on a hike slash picnic, depending on who you ask. There seems to be some question about which one it is. And this is one of the things that seems confusing. He initially tells them, let's go to Devil's Knob, um, which apparently is a real place and not just a joke. And it's a place that he hasn't been since he was a kid, which, okay, I'm not really sure what his relationship with Australia is, but first of all, you're 14, so I don't know when that was that you were just a kid. But then literally like an hour later, as they're walking through there, he tells them that he's never been there before. So his story doesn't fully add up. The guy that died at the quarry seems to be a cartoonishly obvious movie drunk, a homeless guy. But Elliot says that he knows him and that he's a dentist who holidays in the area. I'm a little confused. His, I I'm not sure if we are supposed to, because none of this is really foregrounded. We're not like, no one's calling him out on this. So I'm not sure if we're supposed to be picking up on it as like this is evidence of his flights of fancy, or if he's just a liar, or what. It's slightly confusing.
Just a tad. But I mean, it's entertaining. It's easy enough for a 6-year-old to follow, and that's not the audience that it was designed.
But honestly, here's one of the thing is it works because the the way things don't line up is in a plausible way. Like a kid doing, like a kid contradicting himself like that doesn't seem that far-fetched. And also, Henry Thomas is kind of amazing in this movie. He's some child actors are like great sitcom actors, you know, where the audience is aware that this is part of a performance, and that's kind of your relationship with the audience. But he's very natural. Like his patter seems very real. I don't know if like all of this was scripted or if he just kind of it was improvising some of this shit and they were just talking, but he always seems more like he's just a kid that they turned a camera on and he would be doing this anyway, rather than like we are performing. And so it makes it all sort of work. I just buy into it, and I don't even notice that much when he seems like maybe he's lying. But he definitely is contradicting himself on multiple occasions.
But I mean, it did genuinely seem like he was just talking when he said, "Black's got a whole lot of funny ways. They'll do a whole lot to avoid frog dreamings." That didn't seem
Well,
scripted
I mean,
at all.
in fairness, I have always heard that. That's what Mom says.
I'm sure she does.
That's that's what it said in her birthday card that she sent me last year. It said, "Dear Matthew, Black's got a whole lot of funny ways. Happy birthday."
Oh, Mom.
Sieg Heil. I might be paraphrasing.
Just a touch.
So they wander in the jungle for a while talking about Aboriginal mythology and having slightly uncomfortable exchanges about what the blacks believe. But essentially we're introduced to this place with the idea that it has some sort of relevance to sacred Aboriginal mythology in a super vague way. Like we don't have any idea what kind of sacred space this is maybe supposed to be. But it's apparently it might be. Because there's a whole bunch of them in the Devil's Knob region. The greater Devil's Knob metropolitan area is rife with frog dreamings.
And lots of frogs.
There's a lot of frogs photographed as though maybe they're spooky, which is actually something I really like.
It was fun. It was very entertaining.
They lean a little too heavily on insert shots of like lizards and shit a little bit in that whole area. But I like the frog stuff. Specifically, if they had just maybe focused more on that and a little less on like other stuff that I guess was an eagle maybe.
Hey, it's a frog dreamer too.
Hey, grubs.
Yeah, grubs and frogs.
If you're not gonna eat it.
Yep. Eagles gotta eat.
But that I honestly like he's like I totally love him in that whole scene. He's great in that whole sequence. Even the uncomfortable stuff, he does it really well.
He does.
Like no fault at all to Henry Thomas, who is just fucking solid all the way through this movie.
Yeah, and you know, I appreciate their attempts to make his character just a badass, and it's clearly he's just a dumb shit 14-year-old, you know, making his stupid bike without brakes to ride railroads, leaping off of that giant ass cliff. For what reason? To swim and tow them? What? Why? He didn't even need to do that at that point. He was bad thing happening.
He was definitely showing off for Wendy in that scene.
Well, yeah.
I mean, that's all that was.
He was probably showing off when he forgot to put brakes on his railroad bike.
That was I think the least plausible part of the movie, was that he somehow didn't know that there were no brakes and hadn't considered the necessity of that. Like that just, he's definitely smarter than that. Like, yes, he's a dumb shit 14-year-old, but like he no, I don't buy that. That was that was just a movie conceit. That everything else about this movie totally believable, but that's where I draw the line.
There you go. Yeah. So they get to the lake. They start getting spooked by all the bubbles in the water, and they all run off to the shore, and they get away from the monster in the lake.
Yes, which we only ever see like a little bit of the top of presumably its head.
Yes.
No spoilers.
Well, that's what this is all about, right? We're spoiling.
Honestly, like that's the only thing that I remembered with any clarity about this movie before revisiting it was like I always remember anything that seems like a big reveal. Like I remember that. I remember the whole mechanics of the end of the movie was completely clear in my head.
You
Everything else
remember
was
Donkey
just
Jin there, eh?
I forgot Donkey Engine, but I
No,
remember
Donkey Jin.
Donkey. I definitely remember Donkey. I do appreciate being able to watch it with subtitles this time, so I could see what everyone was saying.
That can help.
But it was okay. So yes, let's just go ahead. This whole movie is like it's a little monster movie. It's like a kid monster movie about this pond in the middle of nowhere that apparently nobody even remembers is there, except for Gaza. And it seems to have like a monster in it that occasionally rears its head and stirs things up. And I like this is a movie in which nothing happens because there's no monster. Like that's the big thing, is that there isn't one. It's all just like physics and shit left behind by settlers a long time ago.
There also aren't any fish for Neville to be fishing for, because this is a quarry that only has water from rain and no active water source. There are no
Maybe
fish
he was fishing for snakes.
or frog remains.
I mean, he's drunk, so maybe he wasn't making a lot of great decisions.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not even a pond. It's an old quarry, and the monster is some old mining equipment that occasionally reacts to a buildup of air in pockets down below that is seeping up through the granite floor of the quarry. It's sort of a cute, clever little arrangement, and it's all presented in a way that that a kid can follow. I mean, it's definitely like it's a kids movie, and Elliot figures out that there's not a monster, and like all of the problem starts with him going to test his theory that there's not actually a monster, and that's when he gets himself in peril.
And the only reason that anybody knows that that's what he did and where he was going was because he made a freaking diorama out of his fish tank.
Well, he was testing if he could be right about it.
I know. I think it's great. I think it's hilarious.
It's really cute how it's presented, and I also love like another trope that I love of old movies, and I think that we discussed this when we did The Blob, is the movies where there's a not sometimes in kids movies like the adults are just kind of absent, and sometimes the adults are like active obstacles, and Wendy's parents are just fucking absurdly obstacle to the story at every turn. They're just completely ridiculous, and I love that. They're just so over the top, and she's very clever and figures it all out, and her parents do everything in their power to stop her, and I thought that was great.
It was. And I love that Elliot's adopted dad is all like super trying to help him out with whatever the fuck he's doing. It's and not in a healthy way.
You expect me to set boundaries for him? I don't think so. That's not the way I parent, buddy.
It's great.
I mean, in his defense, he's not a parent.
No,
It's not fully clear. How did I mean? Maybe I missed something. Did they explain in any detail why he's living there with
uh,
Gaza?
he
I
knew
mean,
and
he's
worked with.
described as an orphan,
Yeah, he knew and
and
worked with Elliot's dad.
right, he refers to him as my dad's best friend.
Yeah,
That seems like a weird arrangement. that
maybe they were closer than
that
best friends.
your parents die, and so you get put in the custody of your dad's best friend in Australia,
Maybe his
because he
parents moved
seems
to
pretty
Australia.
American. Like they don't really seem to go into it, but they don't. I mean, he's definitely an American boy being raised by an Australian for reasons that are not clear to me.
Because they needed a big name actor.
And why?
Because they weren't going to sell a frog dreaming without one.
But they barely did anyway.
Exactly. They spent all their budget on Elliot.
There was a budget?
Yeah, it all went into Elliot.
Huh. Okay. But yeah, it's a little that arrangement is not explained very well. But yeah, he seems to really care about Elliot's well-being, but is definitely not uh the most instinctively appropriate parent.
Yeah, I mean, when Elliot does go out and try and kill himself in the lake and climb into a monster's mouth, Gaza goes and gets hammered as shit and tries to drain the lake. That's a good move, right?
Well, I mean, they can't just leave his little corpse down there.
No, they gotta drain the lake.
So yeah, there's a lot of interesting child parent dynamics. The girls actually, I kind of like the little sketches of the home life that we got from the girls. I was initially only interested because their mom is played by a former Doctor Who companion, and that was sort of fun. But actually, she's kind of batshit. But first she thinks there's a
Wait,
poltergeist, but
wait.
then it turns
Don't you mean she's loopy?
she is definitely loopy. She thinks there's a poltergeist, but then it turns out that the girls have this elaborate system of like strings and pulleys going from the bedroom window that allows them to like pull branches and scrape them against the windows and the gutters to make spooky sounds that drive their mother crazy, which is adorable.
It's great.
And later, this is like the best part, when because when they go out and find the corpse and report it to the police, naturally the parents respond like any responsible parents would do it by grounding the girls. So they're grounded, so Wendy can't go with Elliot to the dance. So she sneaks out of the house just to tell him that she's not going to be able to make it to the dance that night. And the way she sneaks out is by having the little sister go up to the mom and say, "Can you get herpes from French kissing?" And then while the mom is like freaking out and like examining her mouth, Wendy sneaks out the back door.
It is pretty good.
Which is, yeah, there are some lovely little precious moments scattered throughout this movie.
It's a great way to fuck with a parent. I love it.
I mean, it's definitely like I admire any movie that will give kids a trick that they can actually use. And that's, I mean, that's one that works. You know, you could totally do that. Another one that I've seen this a couple of times in like John Waters uses a version of it in Polyester because he used to use it in real life. And then I've seen it done also in Bride of Chucky, which is when you use the gay best friend to so she'll pretend that her gay best friend is her date and they're going out and he's like a good responsible responsible citizen, but it's just to get out of the house so that she can actually go on the date with like the bad kid that the parents have already forbidden her to go with. And I like that sort of subterfuge that movies teach children, because you can use that in real life.
It's good. I thought it was kind of funny, actually. I dated girls a couple of times, and it turned out that they were dating me specifically because they thought that I would upset their parents because I was a naughty child. But their parents
Nice.
loved me. And so then they broke up with me because their parents actually liked me and they didn't want to be dating.
You didn't know how to play that.
I wasn't as bad of a person as they thought I was, I guess.
You should have been worse.
I should have been like, fuck you, fuck off, I'm in your house, fuck you. But instead I was polite and, do things like wash the dishes and say yes. And
Oh
please
no,
and
you
thank you.
should never wash the dishes.
I know. It's just that's just
You're supposed to just break them on the floor.
yeah. Obviously, I didn't quite understand the dynamic these girls were hoping.
I mean, they could have been clearer, I guess, of their intentions.
Yeah, I mean, they should have been like, "Hey, I want you to break the dishes and call my mom a whore." Then I would have got what they wanted, and I would have been like, "Hey."
You should always assume that's what girls want.
I would have been like, "Hey, one dish, not calling your mom a whore though." Oh well, my bad.
Wait, so would you just break the dish and say nothing?
Yes, just eye contact the whole time
While
breaking
smash
it
the dish
and
smash the dish and then say, "Thank you for a lovely evening, Mrs. Smith,"
and walk backwards to the front door, maintaining eye contact without blinking.
I mean, unblinking eye contact is always a good way to button any uncomfortable social situation.
Yeah. It's like in Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail when the one guy's kid fires the arrow out the window the whole time, making just constant eye contact. It's great.
I haven't watched that in a while.
I haven't seen that in a few years. It stands the test of time. I
made Bill watch it a few years ago. I don't think he had ever seen it before. It's the best of the Monty Python features, I think. As a full feature film, I think Holy Grail is the most watchable.
That one and The Life of Brian both are right up there for me.
I mean, I like Life of Brian, and there's really great stuff in Meaning of Life. Meaning of Life is it's way more like a series of sketches.
It is.
Which, I mean, that's fair, considering that we're talking about Monty Python. I mean, they're all to some extent like a series of sketches, but I don't know. I guess Holy Grail maybe. I'm trying to remember. That might be the first one I saw.
It was for me.
So that that might just edge it out because it was the first one. So it always has a little bit of extra power.
Yeah,
but I mean,
it's a great film.
Every sperm is sacred, though. I mean, that's pretty unbeatable on a single, it's as a music video in the midst of the Meaning of Life. That's hard to top.
Yeah, I have to sell you all off for medical experiments.
The salmon mousse.
Did you use canned salmon?
I may have to do that again. I'm pretty sure I have that.
Everybody should.
I mean, it would be surprising if I didn't. I'm almost positive I do.
I'll say one thing for sure. It's a better movie than the one that we're discussing.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I mean, the works of director Brian Trenchard Smith are overall considered the most revered in Hollywood.
What else has this monster done?
I don't know. His name is vaguely familiar. I'm pretty sure he's associated mostly with general B movies. It'd probably be pretty easy for me to find out. I do remember. I know that the original director of this movie was fired and replaced by Brian Trenchard Smith partway through filming, which is generally not a great sign.
Yeah, no, it's not. But I mean, this movie is fun. It's just not.
Well, I mean, it's hard to sell someone on the idea of a movie that where literally like a monster movie where the monster isn't real. That's like
Oh, come on, it's Scooby Doo.
that's going to well, and that's the thing. And here this is something that I wanted to get to as we sort of approach the climax of the movie as well. I I wholeheartedly approve of the Scooby-Doo concept here, that we're talking about a kid who is investigating an apparent monster, who is determined to prove ultimately that it isn't real, right? And
Well, I mean,
here
he
we go.
started out
Interrupt.
thinking it was.
Right, but then when he begins to believe that it's not, he is pursuing that with just as much intent, you know.
Absolutely.
Brian Trenchard Smith is also responsible for such movies as Leprechaun 3
Barf.
and Leprechaun 4 in space. Just real quick there, throw that in.
What else?
Well, those were the only titles that I saw that I immediately recognized. Other titles include, well, he did direct episodes of like the 1980s version of Mission Impossible. But such movies as Strike of the Panther, The Siege of Firebase Gloria.
Weird.
Yeah. He directed some episodes of the 1990s TV series version of Flipper.
There was a 90s TV version of Flipper?
Yeah, I guess. Apparently so.
I had no idea.
Yeah. He has what the hell is this? He directed some direct to video thing that was supposed to be like Porky's 4, but then got released without the Porky's 4 part of the title. So it was just called Pimpin' Pee-wee.
That's great.
Ouch. Yeah. Yeah, that's Brian Trenchard Smith, and I have completely derailed myself, and I have no idea what I was going to say now.
That's all right. We're gonna have to take a break anyway.
Yeah, it looks like we're coming up on a commercial break time, so we are going to be fired and replaced by Brian Trenchard Smith to finish discussing this movie.
I will be Bryan Cranston.
Oh, lucky.
I know.
All right, I guess I'll be Brian Trenchard Smith then.
That was your choice. Welcome back to Depot Devoid. This is not a podcast. This is an emergency broadcast.
Is it an emergency podcast?
No, it's not a podcast.
Is it? Are we part of the emergency podcast system?
It's a network, not a system.
Is that anything like an ecosystem?
It's the opposite of an ecosystem because there's no fish in the lake.
Is it full of Aboriginal mythology?
Yes, because the blacks avoid the frog dreamings, just like Elliot told us.
Can you lure them to the frog dreaming with a line of Reese's Pieces?
You can't use lures because there's no fish.
You can use Reese's Pieces.
There's no fish.
You can use big lamb shanks for monster bait.
I
But
mean,
the monster bait won't bait the monster if the monster is monster baiting.
I was wondering where that was going to go.
I apologize to everyone.
For all of our millions and millions of fans.
I apologize to everyone except
I need
the late Alan Thicke.
What is Alan Thicke?
What is Alan Thicke?
Yeah.
I mean, he probably isn't thick anymore. He's been rotten for a while.
Bob Barker died.
Like recently?
Yeah, I think on Sunday.
Huh. I feel like I thought he was already dead.
Yeah, actually, it was really funny to me because about a month and a half, 2 months ago, one of my coworkers who's like all sorts of conspiracy theory, fucking flat earth bullshit, was talking to one of the other people in the office, and I was doing my best to ignore the bullshit. And then she's like trying to remember the word or the term Mandela effect, but could not come up with it and was having a hard time figuring it out. And she's going on and on about trying to figure it out. And she's like, a thing like when this and the thing like that, like 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 how people think that Bob Barker is dead. I'm like, it's the Mandela effect, and Bob Barker is dead as fuck. And she's like, no, he's not. And I'm like, he's dead. He's really, really dead. And one of my other coworkers is like, yeah, Bob Barker's fucking dead as hell. And she starts trying to like show us on her phone that Bob Barker's alive. And we're refusing to look at it. And be like, no, Bob Barker's dead as hell.
He's dead to me.
And then
yesterday, he knows
yesterday,
why.
exactly. Yesterday, I got a text from my coworker Brian being like, "Hey, Bob Barker's dead. Guess we were right all along."
You spoke it into existence.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, time is a flat circle. We were right the whole time.
It seems like he should have been dead for a long time.
Yeah, he was 99.
Yeah, that's too old. That's plenty.
Yeah. He was born in 1923. He needed to go.
That's enough. That's enough, Bob.
Yeah, and then we ended our conversation about Bob Barker saying something about Price is Right rules. By that right, he should reach into his own pocket and pull out $100 bill now, because yeah, Bob Barker, he's dead as fuck. He had the audacity to die twice.
Right?
Bullshit.
But he got so close to 100 without going over.
Exactly. That's why he needs to reach into his own pants. Do you remember
does that mean he wins the showcase or both showcases?
Yeah. Do you remember how when somebody would get the exact amount right when they were in contestants row and then they go up there and they get $100? If it's a woman, he's like, reach into my pocket and pull out $100 bill. But if it's a dude, he would hand it to them. And there were a couple of times I remember where some guy is like, yeah, and goes and tries to shove his hand in his pocket. He's like, no. Oh, Bob.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Not on camera, Kenneth.
I watched that show so many times with our papa. It was a great show, but Bob Barker's
I mostly associate it with staying home sick from school.
All I know is it would play at 10 a.m. Monday through Friday, and it was Grandpa's favorite show aside from Star Trek: The Next Generation. Exactly.
10 a.m. Monday through Friday, which is why I associate it with staying home sick from school.
I mostly associate it with when I would go and stay at Grandpa's house before I had to go to school.
Yeah, fair enough.
If I went there, I knew that I would be eating almost guaranteed Dinty Moore beef stew, and I would be watching Price is Right in the morning.
Sounds about right.
That man loved Dinty Moore beef stew.
I mean, there are worse things.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. It was
all
right. If I wasn't a vegetarian nowadays, I'd be like, hey, I want to try some Dinty Moore beef stew and remember this memory of Grandpa. But
it's inoffensive enough that revisiting it for nostalgia is fine.
Yeah.
There are things that's probably not true for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So shall we talk about this movie and finish it?
Oh God, is it done yet?
Alas, it is not. But I remembered what I was saying before I derailed myself with Leprechaun 4 in Space.
Should I interrupt you for a while until you forget? It's
probably not even the weakest of the Leprechaun movies, if we're being honest.
I only ever saw the first one.
I think it was probably the worst one at the time. But since he had also directed Leprechaun 3, that means he was only worse than himself. So he's at least better than himself as well.
Yeah.
Is one way of looking at it. Anyway, I was going to say, you mentioned Scooby-Doo, which was a point that I wanted to bring up from my notes, which is that this does that first season Scooby-Doo Where Are You thing, where it's about the monster not being real. And that is why the thing I hate most about this movie is that little bit at the end where they're like, oh, except maybe it is, woo! And it doesn't work at all. Like, I get that that's what you want the monster to be real. I get that. I love a monster movie. You know I love a monster movie. But this movie has just spent its entire running time teaching us that the monster isn't real. And it sets that up from the beginning. And it shows us other things not being real to like foreshadow the whole idea that the monster isn't real. And then the monster isn't real. And then they do some weird Aborigine shaman thing at the end. I can't even tell what I'm supposed to be thinking is happening, to be honest. But like the message that Elliot takes away at the end of the movie is that even though he just proved that the fucking monster isn't real, it's actually real. Like, what the fuck is that?
Hey, Donkagen screamed. How did he breathe down there for what, 14 hours?
Because the air was gathering in the bucket of the shovel-y thing that
Not
was
enough
seeping
room
up
for enough
through the
air for that kid
granite.
to stay alive. Of course it was monsters. It's always monsters, man.
E.T. taught him how to hold his breath for a really long time,
Elliot,
and I
hold
can't
breath.
legally tell you why he needed to learn that.
Oh. Oh. I get it. It's one of
No,
them
you don't.
type
I didn't say
movies.
anything.
No, I get you. I know what's whew. I never knew it was like that.
Well, and then Henry Thomas left the business for a while for whatever
Reasons.
reason.
Obviously. We know why.
But yeah, I was very frustrated by that thing at the end because I felt like it was, it seemed like maybe the movie didn't have the courage of its own convictions, you know, like it was afraid that people were going to be like, ah, this is bullshit, nothing happened to this movie, which again, that's fair, like that's reasonable. But I think it was better that way.
I don't think that they knew how to wrap it up. I don't think that they understood how to make an end sequence for what they did. And so they just pissed all over it and ruined it.
Yeah, that's, I mean, I think that the thing to do, and I don't know what the proper ending is, but like I probably should have spent even 1 second thinking about it. It should be about what Elliot takes away from this experience, because he should be coming out of this experience like he has learned something, like he has actually, like in you know, the American releases is called The Quest, and so like it really is, you know, it's about the journey, not the destination. He has gone through this series of like sort of fairly methodical steps. Like, yeah, he's a dopey kid, but like he was researching other monsters, and he went to visit experts to ask their opinions and advice, and he visited, and you know, he tracked down an Aboriginal shaman, and he visited a college professor, and so he was doing the right thing to try to figure this out. And ultimately he went into it, I assume, like believing there was a monster. And most kids would probably have held on to that belief pretty hard. He actually like examined the evidence and formed a hypothesis and realized that he was likely to be wrong, that there was a monster, figured out how to test his hypothesis that there wasn't one. Like that's it. Like that's a clever kid. So
He even
what he should take
identified what it
away,
was.
yes. So what he should take away from this experience is like, I like if nothing else, he should become a debunker. You know, he should take this out and like figure out how to use his ingenuity in some other way. And the end of the movie, if anything, should just show him applying that knowledge rather than eagerly throwing it away, which is essentially what he's doing. Like all it takes is like one moment for him to be like, oh, well, everything I learned was wrong. And that's not the best way they could have gone out, I don't think.
Yeah, the last scene was counter to what the movie was about, and we did
So.
not need that. We don't need magic to suck everything back into the lake. It's the movie was silly and entertaining, but that was just annoying, irritating.
It was annoying, and I feel like you could even like what he experienced doesn't mean like it doesn't prove there is no magic in the world, you know, and it doesn't prove there are no monsters. It proves that what we were talking about wasn't a monster. And we could even like he can be left with like there you can show us something at the end that gives him the idea that, oh, maybe there's a little more to the world than I knew. You know, show us that maybe some aboriginal magic is maybe real, or show us like some other, you know, show us that a binyip is real, you know, show us something else that we have already been given information about, show us that that's real, but Donkichin wasn't. And he actually voices that there really is a Donkichin, which is that's totally the wrong message. um they I feel like they really overcorrected that, and it's extremely frustrating to me, apparently. Like
Yeah,
way more frustrating than I realized.
yeah. No, it the end of the movie was the worst part.
It really was. It really was. And because I really enjoyed the journey up to that point. Like it's like again, it's like it's very soothing. It's like it's the like when you hear like when you hear Paul Rust talk about the part of Friday the 13th before everyone starts getting murdered. Like it's just like this really pleasant place to hang out where like the weather is nice, the scenery is beautiful,
Yeah,
there's kids running around doing kid stuff. Like it's all very pleasant, and like the whole movie is like that. And then the end just kind of like shits on a little bit, and I don't appreciate it.
yeah. No, and I spent my fair amount of time as a kid trying to figure out what the monsters were and chase all the baddies around and having fun with that. But there was never anything to actually figure out because there was no way of figuring out what the thing was. This, he figured it out. And now we didn't need to add in the it's definitely that guy up on the side of the cliff. Yeah. Yeah. He's using
Yeah,
his
yeah,
evil psychic
no,
powers to yeah, all right. Everything that I figured out that was right. No, 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 I was wrong. I don't
yeah,
know.
no. It is a bad message because it's like it shows a kid being capable, and then like right at the end undercuts all of that and
And
tells
he's
you that he
happy
was
about it.
wrong. Yeah, like what is that? Why? And he's happy about it because like, you know, monsters are real, which it's like it wants to have it both ways, and it shouldn't have tried. It should not have tried to have it both ways. It was fine one way, and it was like the I can see there yeah, you're worried about being forgettable. And honestly, like it is. Like
Yeah.
that's but you know what? Some stories are, and that's fine. Like some
Yeah.
stories aren't supposed to be the thing that blows you away. Um, this is just, it's a nice story. It's a pleasant kids on bikes movie that I would have a hard time recommending to anyone in a modern audience. But would enjoy myself without the last scene. It just kind of it dicks us all over, and I am miffed about it.
Scooby-Doo is fun because it's always not a monster until they start
Exactly.
fucking up and making the weirder movies and the newer series, and then
And
the
that's why I don't watch those.
yeah,
And
it's
I totally get, because I've tried, and I honestly, like, I went at one point when I was wanting to watch Scooby-Doo, I went and found a Scooby-Doo wiki, which broke down the different series so I could figure out which ones were going to be the actual supernatural ones so I could fucking skip them,
yeah,
because I'm not interested in that kind of Scooby-Doo. I don't want Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island where the zombies are real fucking zombies. That's stupid.
yeah, it is.
Ugh. It's fucking bullshit, man. Well,
Fuck
and
this
that's like, I don't
movie.
know if you ever saw that the Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated series, because that one was really frustrating because it goes supernatural at the end. But like it is so good for like 3/4 of the series. It
Hmm.
is like the best that Scooby-Doo has ever been since Scooby-Doo Where Are You? And I
Did it
loved it. And
have
then
Scrappy?
no.
Good.
And then it just sort of turned to bullshit. But you can enjoy a whole lot of it before it gets weird. And there's good stuff in there. Like there's a Lovecraft episode starring Jeffrey Combs, for example. But yeah, it's like it was on Netflix during quarantine, and I started watching it just like on a whim, and then I suddenly realized like this was like I watched like 8 episodes without stopping. I was like, oh shit, this is really good.
Yeah,
I
no,
miss
I haven't seen
quarantine.
that one.
I think it's on HBO now. I think they've got all the Scooby Doo. It's worth checking out if you want to give it a chance. It's like good characterizations, good animation, really funny. Um, and yeah, it's like it's got a great cast, and most of it like follows like it follows the proper Scooby Doo formula, but has more of a through line. There's actually like continuity from episode to episode, um but it's like, I mean, not like, it's not a soap opera.
Right.
If you just watched a random episode you wouldn't be hopelessly lost, but like, there's a B story that adds up to something. But yeah, it's the only Scooby-Doo besides the old ones that I would really recommend, and I love Scooby-Doo.
It's a great show, the original anyway.
It's so good, and I even loved the the 1972, like the new Scooby-Doo movies, where the ones that all had, they were like 45-minute episodes, and they all had some like rando celebrity guest star, like Mama Cass from the Mamas and the Papas, or
Or
Sandy
Batman
Duncan.
and Robin.
Yeah, there were a weirdly high number of Batman and Robin episodes, and like a couple of the Three Stooges episodes.
Did they have
um
Spider-Man once?
I don't think there was a Spider-Man. There was an Addams Family episode that isn't even in any of the collections, because like the rights to the Addams Family were only negotiated for like that broadcast, and so they've been in contention ever since. I vaguely remember it from childhood, but I've
That's
never
good.
seen it again. Even the DVD set doesn't have it. They
Hey, I'm
meet
sure it's
Sonny
on
and
YouTube.
Cher,
Oh,
probably.
I do remember that.
That one's terrible. They're so bad. That's what's shocking. It's like 1 year after Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And the animation is fucking garbage. It's so weird. Like as a kid, I did not notice, but as an adult, it's like, holy crap. It's like it's like you here's Shaggy's face, but his facial features are all like a half an inch off. like everything is just bad.
Yeah, I remember when my daughter was little, back when Blockbuster was a thing, going to Blockbuster all the time and renting a couple of things to watch with her while hanging out in the evening and making dinner and stuff. And we rented a lot of Scooby Doo movies from the newer stuff. It
Yeah.
was so frustrating to me. It's like you take this concept and then you get like a different snarky attitude from like, oh well, this is just a guy in a suit. Oh no, and it's just so not good.
Oh man, the Mystery Incorporated does have, there's a little bit of like self-awareness of the formula that goes on there. But I felt like the way they handled it was really interesting and fun, where it's like you have like Daphne definitely has like an active attraction to Fred, but the gag is that the only thing that Fred is interested in at all is traps. And he is utterly oblivious. Like, it's not like he's shunning her advances. It's his sexuality is akin to like the Tick in the Tick cartoon, where it's like
He's horny for traps.
yes, and he does not understand the concept of sexual attraction enough to realize that he is the recipient of it at all. And it's so true to his character, but it's just like taken a little bit further, and there's a good balance in there that's pretty fun. I highly recommend. It's a good show. I want to go watch it now. It's so much better than Frog Dreaming.
Yeah, it's going to be a long time before I'm ready to watch this one again. But I mean, it was one of those movies that over the last 10 years or so, I've uh, bought a fair amount of things that were stuff that I watched when I was a kid, just because
Yeah,
I wanted to revisit it. And I think I've got Cloak and Dagger. I
I
got
went and
Flight of the
checked and
Nap.
I don't have that anymore, and I'm really bummed
Yeah,
because I definitely had it at the shop.
I know I bought it. I bought the Gargoyles TV series because it was great. Uh,
I had actually never seen that when it was airing, but I've just watched like the first 5 or 6 episodes of it, and it's pretty good.
yeah, the first season's the best. I don't think I finished the third season. I have it, but I don't think I've gotten around to finishing it.
There's a lot of
Uh,
Star Trek people in it.
yeah, and I appreciate that about it. It's actually quite a bit of fun. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's a good show. Uh, I know that there's plenty of other ones. I'm not going to sit around and think and rattle them all off right now, but it was good to get a lot of that stuff and then realize how much of it was trash, uh, and how much of it actually stood the test of time.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing some similar stuff. And this is one like this one is an odd one because it's a little of both. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like I said, I can't imagine showing this to like assuming that the target audience originally would be people around the age of Henry Thomas in the movie. Um, I can't imagine showing it to someone like a tween and having them connect with it in any way. That just seems utterly preposterous.
no, I mean, especially nowadays, because it's like he's jumping into the lake, his cell phone's in his pocket.
Well,
The
yeah,
fuck?
I mean it. I mean,
And he got an
even
OtterBox on that.
forgoing the fact that it's like clearly like a super old. If you are 14 now, this is so much older than you. Um, it's got to seem downright ancient, and you would have no like. It would just. It's so removed from you culturally that like you wouldn't engage with it. Like no part of this is something that you would even recognize as human experience.
Your parents let you go out with a girl and her sister on bikes to Devil's Knob?
My parents only took me to Devil's Knob when with adult supervision.
Ew.
But yeah, this is but it's also like it's not a bad movie. It's got some problems, and one extraordinary point of frustration for me. Um, but it charms me, and it is a pleasant ambiance in which to exist for a time.
It's not well done, but it has a special place because I saw it when I was younger. And it also has a lot of really heartfelt entertainment points for me, being the kid everyone tells him he's not right. He is right, and he's looking into it, and he discovers it and solves a mystery that didn't really necessarily even need to be solved.
No, there are no stakes to that at all.
But he did
Like,
it.
none. It's just curiosity.
Yeah, it's great.
And he leaves it like he solves it like with enough clarity that when Wendy like sneaks out and into his workshop, she sees what he's done and figures it out herself.
Yeah.
And then her fucking parents show up and treat her like an escaped mental patient. It's so fucking weird. Like they seem like they're frightened almost by like she's having some sort of like lunatic breakdown. All she's doing is like, look at this. He might be alive down there. Like, oh my god, take her home. Like, what is happening?
If they just hadn't had the last 3 minutes of the movie, even if they just like left it as like, oh, hey, they pulled the little ET boy out of the lake. It's fine. It would have been a lot better, even if there just wasn't a climax.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I would have preferred a slightly different tag that sort of showed maybe where the character was going, but just ending it without that would have been fine too, just so that we didn't have that awful undercut. Like, I just don't get it. Like, it was a bad decision. Bad Brian Trenchard Smith. Ugh.
Yes. I mean, even if they just pulled him out of the lake and then Gaza, it was like, oh, you smell bad. You need to take a shower. I mean, that would have been a better ending than a frog dream. It's real. Oh,
There really is a dream time? What the fuck does that even mean? That wasn't a concept that was bandied about during the dialogue of this movie.
I got it. I figured it out. I fixed it. Perfectly fixed it. Here's what the problem was, Matt. Those last 3 minutes weren't real. This is oxygen deprived brain.
Oh, because he died.
Yeah. Or at least came real close. It might have been like, oh shit, I got air again. What the fuck's going on? Oh, whoa, frog dreaming's real? Oh, damn. Oh, I need a shower. You know? That's probably what it was. That was actually just from the perspective of Elliot.
You know, what? Because so he dies under the water, and then so we get those moments where we're not sure as an audience what's happening, and then once he's dead, we cut to the top of the cliff overlooking the quarry, and we see the Aboriginal shaman looking down, and then he pulls off his mask, and it's Peter Coyote from E.T.
The whole time.
And then the CIA guy behind him shoots him in the back of the head. Peter Coyote falls into the quarry, and the CIA guy walks away.
We fixed it.
Yeah, that's so much better.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. I love this movie now.
Cool. We still have to fix Transformers, don't forget.
Yeah, we do. It's really hard. It's really hard. And that is what she said in my version of the movie.
And was he peeing when she said that?
A little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little squirt.
Just to punctuate the moment.
Yep. There's a lot of punctuation with piss in Michael Bay films, so I mean, you got to have a little bit.
Okay, so I'm thinking we're coming up on September now, so we're gonna need to start thinking about some Halloween programming.
I feel like we are going to have to watch Bloodsong, just because it takes place in a town that is comprised of 3 different towns, one of which we are both from.
Yes.
I don't really even know what it is, other than I think it's a murder movie.
It's terrible. I watched it once a long time, because unsurprisingly, every video store in Coos Bay and North Bend had copies of Bloodsong. And at one point I did watch it. I'm pretty sure that the entire thing is available for free on YouTube. It's garbage.
I'm sure.
But because of the Coos Bay North Bend connection, it is definitely one to check out, only for us.
Exactly. It's not going to be good.
No, but I mean, it's weird because it's a serial killer movie starring Frankie Avalon, who, as we all know, sings "It's Christmas, it's Christmas, it's Christmas in Heaven" in Monty Python's Meaning of Life.
Yes, it is good.
So we're basically still on topic, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yes, it's coming up on that season.
Spooky.
The season of the witch. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
No, I don't think we should start there.
Well, you can watch that one anytime, because it's not connected at all to any movie. It's a complete standalone, and it actually is one of my favorites. It's so good. I love it. It's fucking weird as shit. It's called Halloween 3, but it's not part of the franchise at all in any way. It's so weird. I love it. It's got druid magic and murdering children by turning their faces into bugs and robots. It's fucking weird. It's
I love it.
Really fun.
All right, Matt, it has come to that time.
It has. So we'll figure out the details later. I love you, Ted. Thank you for bearing with me and watching this movie.
Love you too, Matt. It's a great movie. It's better now that we've put our little spin on it.
We fixed the end for sure. So we'll never have to watch that part again, at least.
Not a bit. All right.
Until next time.
Until next time. Love you.
Love you too. Stay devoid.
Stay devoid.
Depot Devoid is hosted by Matt Fagan and Ted Fagan. Depot Devoid is not hosted by Ian Fagan because he died and we miss him. Reach us at depotdevoidpodcast@gmail.com.